Alright guys, so this exercise is 3.6 and we're looking at the least squares regression. Effectively what we're going to be doing in this exercise is fitting trend lines or regression lines to a set of data. This is quite important and useful because then it allows us to create or find an equation for a line, which would then allow us to make some predictions based on what's happening in our set of data. And there are two main methods which we use to do this. First and foremost, we have the CAS method. It is the quickest, the easiest, the most accurate method we have, and you should always use this method unless a question specifically asks you to use it by hand. So in saying that, the second method is, yes, we have to do it by hand, which is a long, tedious process, but we have to know how to use the formula and how to do it by hand because it will come up on your exam, and yeah, it's just something that we need to know. This slide here is pretty much just a cheat sheet on how to do the regression line on your CAS. We've already uploaded a video onto the channel, but this is just a quick run through on how to do it because like when you get to your exam or your SAC, you cannot take videos into those with you, so you can't watch the video to see how to do it. So if you get lost, this is a nice run through on how to actually do it. This next slide starts showing us and telling us some of the things we need to do when we need to do this by hand. So as you can see here, we need a bunch of summary data. So we need both the mean of the explanatory and the response variables, we need the standard deviation of the two, and we also need our correlation coefficient or our R value. If a question has not given you these 5 bits of information, like in the previous exercises, you can use your CAS to work out the mean and the standard deviation. So things that we're doing back in exercise 1, or chapter 1, my apologies, using those one variable summaries, that's how you can get these if a question hasn't given to you already. Once you do have all that information, it's just simply chucking it into this equation here. So usually we use the y equals a plus bx equation, but you can also use the y equals mx plus c equation. And they both show here the ways we can use that and substitute this information in. The key thing to see here or notice is that we have two separate things we have to work at first. We have the slope or our gradient, which is our b, and then we have our intercept, which is our a value. So it's effectively chucking them into one of these two equations and then throwing all the information back into this y equals a plus bx equation. Super important slide. I can't underline or mention how important this is. Once you have gone through and done all the work, be it on your CAS or by hand, you have to make sure you use the variables given in the question. Do not, I repeat, do not leave it in this form here with y's and x's in your equation. So if, for instance, your y was number of calls, you put number of calls, and x was number of minutes, you put the number of minutes. If you left it in this form here with y and x's, you will lose 1 full mark, even if you've done everything else correct. This is the biggest area in this exercise, this chapter, probably this whole area of study where people lose a lot of marks, is they will leave it in this form here. We do not want to see this. We want to see this thing here where all your variables are substituted back in at the end. Don't make this little slip up cost you 1 full mark when you've done all that hard work beforehand. And that's effectively it for this exercise. The hardest part of this all is doing it by hand, and you only ever have to do that if they ask you to do that by hand. In saying that, we're going to have an example following this right now that shows you how to work out a regression line by hand. But otherwise, that sums it up. Thanks guys.